Joining us on our AMRI Zoom calls Wednesday afternoon. I know we're competing with the governor right now. I think he's got a live broadcast, so we'll jump right into this. We'll get off and see what the governor has to say about our next steps. But thanks, Paddy, for joining us.
Glad to be here.
For those of you who haven't been on before, I think a number of you have. This is organized by AMRI, the Accelerate Montana's Rural Innovation Initiative. We are part of Accelerate Montana, which is at the House of the University of Montana. And our goal is to work and support entrepreneurs in rural Montana, both directly with business owners like yourselves, to build your businesses, support startups, new ideas, launching creative, innovative ideas out of rural Montana, as well as to support building the ecosystem, if you will, or so that the term that's used is the ecosystem, the relationships, the networks of people, so that businesses like yourselves have the ability to contact financiers. You get in contact with folks like Paddy, who are experts in industry or experts in strategic planning, free coaching, contact with each other, finding teammates, finding business partners. That's really what we're looking at doing, is developing that ecosystem across rural part of the state. As you might imagine, in recent weeks, we've been really focusing on the federal programs and financing through the federal programs. And we're now recognizing that it's really important for businesses to start looking away from the federal programs and doing what they can do. I know many people have already been doing that, but do what you can to pivot your business, look for different alternatives or options if you've been shut down, finding different revenue streams and so forth. And we invited Paddy in today because I think Paddy has a real depth of understanding and knowledge, not just in the manufacturing industry, but just basically in business. So we want to have Paddy come on and talk about pivoting. He's definitely been in the industry a long time. We've seen different downturns, certainly I imagine, Paddy. So I wanted to welcome you. Thanks for agreeing to be here. Paddy, you've been the director of the Montana Manufacturing Extension Center since 2014. Is that correct?
Correct.
But you've been in manufacturing for over 20 years in different
30 now.
30 years. Yeah, working. So you definitely have seen some different economic ups and downs, and worked in leadership roles through probably those different ups and downs. And so one of the things I wanted to really pick your brain about and hear your perspective is through those times, manufacturing isn't always known for being really quick to adjust or nimble. But I think, and I'd like to have you speak to this a little bit, but Montana's manufacturing have definitely been nimble when been faced with COVID. I mean, there's lots of activity happening in Montana for Montana's manufacturers, from Sims waders, fishing gears, switching from making waders to making surgical gowns, for example. Lots of people making masks using 3D printers, using injection molds, really quickly coming up with designs. It's been remarkable. So I thought it'd be really great to hear from you and how in an industry that typically does really well with getting into a pattern and doing the same thing very well every day, every minute, over and over again, that is same industry that's really good at getting it stuck in patterns. Because I think we all can get into patterns and get stuck in what we want to do or what we are accustomed doing. But how do we shift out of that? So how do you do that in manufacturing? Because there might be a lot of learning for those of us that are in different industries to understand how might you, for the strategies, the processes, all of that. So thanks for joining us. And if you would share a little bit about what you and your team are doing now in Montana, and how you've been doing the last few weeks in response to COVID and the creativity of what's going on in the state for the manufacturing industry.
Sure. So we normally charge for our services. So at this point, we are not charging for our services whatsoever to Montana's manufacturers. We've created a web page with manufacturing specific resources and information that are relevant to this outbreak. We hold a weekly manufacturing call where we provide a platform for people to discuss best practices. We also Usually have the senator's staff on the call so they can ask questions directly of the senator's staff. Often have SBA person on, USDA, etc. We also have been running some collaborative groups throughout the state. We have where the manufacturers have gotten together and we just facilitate meetings and collaboration and innovation. So we have one with all those that are producing sanitizers. We have one with 3D printed face masks, another one with plastic injection molded face masks, another with stone products. Have one that's working with on ventilator supply chain and food manufacturers. And we also have companies in Montana that are building or producing face shields right now. And we also, and the final thing we've really been doing, I guess, is we've been providing a running list to the Montana Hospital Association, the Montana Economic Developers, and the Montana Disaster Emergency Services of these manufacturers that are producing products that could be used to help with this outbreak.
Yeah, I've seen those emails as well on those lists, and that's very helpful for folks looking for materials, because I think now there's a great deal of capacity that the manufacturing industry has developed. But in just so a little quick circling back, so if those of you jumping on, you're maybe not familiar with Zoom, down at the very bottom of your screen, if you roll down there, you'll see a chat button right to the left of the green button. If you want to click on that, you can put your questions there. We have a small enough group today, though. If you want to unmute yourself and just verbally ask your question, please do so. We're really pretty informal, and you know, we can. Last week, we had a lot of questions coming in on the PPP, so we did it all on the sidebar. But feel free to answer or ask questions when you wish. This is being recorded, so we do want to have it recorded and posted up on our Facebook page. So be aware of that. Paddy, when you think of pivoting, or you've talked to probably hundreds, if not thousands, of manufacturers and businesses in your career, and you've worked in them. When you look at an environment that's changing rapidly, and maybe this is unprecedented, when you think of a business pivoting, how might you describe that, or how might you define that from your experience?
I guess I would say that it would be a pivot would be when a manufacturer decides to make a different product, or make a modification to their product, or sell through a different distribution channel because of something happening in the marketplace. And
I think we've seen that it's become both from government regulations, but also just customer choices now. And I would think that what we're seeing and what I'm reading is that it looks like customer choices are gonna shift. They're shifted, and regardless if the governor says today or right now, like, hey, we're all clear, we're gonna all go back, which is probably not the case. Customer choices are gonna be different now. The way people buy things and is gonna be very different. What do you do when you go into a business, or like the manufacturers? How are the manufacturers thinking about that? How are you thinking about that when you chat with a business? About looking at the market and sort of understanding what customers are looking for, to find a right pivot for them.
Yeah, we basically have a conversation with them about where they see the market going, what changes the consumer are doing. Kind of a twofold thing. We've got manufacturers that are B2B, business to business, and then business to consumer. Obviously, the business to consumer one, they're watching consumer trends. That sometimes can be also useful with B2B folks as well. But usually we kind of analyze what they have, what are their assets, do they have machinery, do they have know-how, do they have a supply chain, and maybe there's another product that they could produce that is in more demand at this time.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any, you mentioned the ones that are working really on COVID-19 direct sort of situations like medical supplies and PPE. Are there any notable folks that you've been working with in the last few weeks or months that couldn't do that? They don't have an industry that's directly related to making hand sanitizers or masks or such, that have had to pivot and been able to do it, and you kind of helped them through that conversation?
Yeah, I think a great example is Montana's brewers, which I believe is over 90 of them now. So they don't have the ability to make sanitizer. They really don't have the ability to make any PPE, obviously. And the marketplace has drastically changed for them, where they were getting a lot of their revenue out of a tasting room. That just disappeared overnight. They have no revenue coming in from tasting rooms. But there's a new rule too that allows them to deliver beer to individuals, which they've never been allowed to do so before. So you can see a lot of them are really pivoting quickly on and changing their business model. That now that one of their major revenue sources is dried up, and yet another one has opened up.
That's a great example. We live just north of Lolo Peak Brewing, so we've taken advantage of their curbside service, and we've talked to them about their delivery. One of the things that comes up is we've talked about how when you pivot, you recognize, and you alluded to this a little earlier, you recognize, oh, here's this new market, this new way of selling beer to customers, so we can deliver it. We've also talked to some farmers in the area, and Montana's Farmers Co-op, and that the delivery, however, starts adding more costs or different challenges that you didn't have to deal with before. We've been talking about this idea of pivoting and talking to small businesses as an outside look to see, okay, what markets, what's looking different in the world to sell to, and then an inside look to say, okay, can we do that and actually make money doing it? Are there added costs and such? In your mind, is that a right way to think about it, or?
I agree with you. Yeah, it is a complicated decision to make. I can give you an example of one right now. Is a plastic injection molder. This company's history has been B2B, selling to big companies that parts for their machinery, usually food manufacturers or lumber manufacturers, and so they started making some of these plastic injection molded face masks. So now the question becomes, is that something they want to permanently do? And when you start talking about these plastic injection molded face masks, lots of questions there. Well, first of all, do you know anything about the market? And he really didn't. Is there federal requirements? Yes, FDA has strict requirements on that. He doesn't know any of those requirements because his other business doesn't require that. The distribution channel is entirely different. He's used to business transactions with a sawmill or a food manufacturer. And now to sell the PPE, is he going to distribute himself? Is he going to find a distributor? Is it going to be in retail operations? Is he going to sell to individuals? That's a new one that a lot of our manufacturers are dealing with right now, is they tend to be in the B2B thing, but they're making PPE right now, and there's a lot of demand for somebody that wants three masks. So most of them aren't even set up to ship or package 2 or 3 at a time, and their websites aren't set up to take orders. They don't even have customer service people set up or trained to take individual orders. So lots of things have to be taken into account on that. So the plastic injection molder, he decided that it was just a totally different market for him to get into. So he decided he did not want to be a PPE manufacturer unless somebody would pay him to make them in bulk. So.
I have a question. Is it okay for me to jump in now?
Yeah, go ahead, Kristen.
So what I specialize in is reaffirming company values and strengthening togetherness, and of course, empowering focused productivity and mindful longevity. So I specialize more in the soft skill training on that aspect with companies. So how do I get in front of companies so I can help them achieve their profitable milestones and goals by helping to retrain their employee productivity and performance?
Well, I guess you'd have to do as we do, and that's lots of cold calls and visits to manufacturers.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of the things. So Patty, meet Kristen, Kristen meet Patty. So Kristen's in Butte, and she's been working on developing some trainings. For, I'll kind of paraphrase this, Kristen. I mean, you can, you can jump in. But she's looking at doing training specifically on, as she said, the soft skills or the individual skills to support teams to perform better and individuals perform better under times of stress and so forth. And are you seeing that in your experience in manufacturing? And right now, given the situation, are you seeing companies and businesses needing to do that kind of training more, or choosing to do that training more because people can't do what they're doing before?
Prior to the outbreak, there was a trend where there was a lot more training going on in that arena. It seems to have halted due to the outbreak. But there is a constant need for that. Manufacturers are more and more desperate for employees, and they constantly complain about the lack of soft skills from a lot of the employees that they hire. So I think there's a big issue with that. I would also add, Kristen, that Associated Employers, which is a nonprofit started in 1916. They really focus on HR, and partnering with them might be a good option for you.
Okay.
So it's interesting. You're actually seeing that in the manufacturing sector anyway, that it's really, that kind of training is halted at this point because everybody's just trying to make sure the boat can stay afloat.
Yes.
Yeah.
A question that came into the chat box, Zen has a question. Is anyone providing services to help these small businesses pivot to new revenue channels as part of their evolving business model?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, I'll just jump in here. So I'm up in Lake County in Polson, and I've actually been talking with a couple of economic development agencies, and we're seeing a gap where small businesses in these rural areas, they're not typically about large-scale manufacturing, but there is some, and a lot of it can be retail or seasonal based. And the reality is they don't know how to develop an online channel. So we're actually looking for resources that could be providing these skills. I know of one program in North Dakota where the skills are coming out of the entrepreneur program, which is actually working with individual companies and businesses. But I wondered, what's the scope here in this part of Montana?
I have one of my staff is located in Kalispell and one is in Missoula, and they both share Polson. So I can tell you, and I grew up 20 miles from Polson, so I know all the manufacturers in the area.
Yeah.
So, and we provide services to all of them. If they're not a manufacturer, the SBDC is a fantastic resource.
Yep.
We have an SBDC at Lake County Community Development in Ronan.
Yep. And they're the ones I'm talking to. So I know Dan Gordon up at SBDA in DC in Kalispell, but it's something that's come up, and it's emerged recently. It didn't emerge like 4 or 5 weeks ago, but it's the conversation of, well, how do I keep my little rural business that might be family afloat? Yep, we're all trying to apply for the PPP loan, but it's compounded with, well, now we actually need new skills. So it kind of goes to what the previous speaker, Kristen, was saying. All of a sudden, and it's also tied in with what you alluded to. How do we do distribution? How do we do shipping? How do we do this? How do we do that? How do we do online orders when we've basically been a phone call business, someone just calling up? So,
like I said, if you're a manufacturer, MMEC can help you, and if you're not, SBDC can help you.
Yep. Thank you.
Patty, do you have any restrictions on how small a manufacturer could be?
Absolutely not. In fact, I'm pressed consistently from the National Institute of Standards and Technology to work with smaller and smaller. So 83% of the manufacturers in Montana have less than 20 employees.
Yeah, I think that's, so Zen, I can send you the link as well to Paddy's page. The person in Missoula, we were hoping to meet just a month ago, right? We were just about to have that meet the new person, and that got shut down. But so Zen, I'll send you that link so you can get contacted with Paddy's regional folks there.
I would also say, Karl, this might be a good time to talk a little bit about the Bear Group and how some, we have resources at the UM campus for kind of this exact thing. If it's a little more specific, if it's a little more nuanced, and you're needing some one-on-one coaching for, especially like pivoting to online channels of marketing. Do you want to talk a little bit about the Bear Group, Karl?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good segue. So Zen and others. So the Bear Group, it's Bear powered by UM, is a group put together in partnership with the Missoula Economic Partnership here in Missoula, the University of Montana's Business School, as well as the Launchpad, the Blackstone Launchpad at UM, and AMRI, us, as well as all of the Accelerate Montana team, the World Trade Center, SBDC, and PTAC, so that Procurement Technical Assistance Center, run by Patty Cox here. So there's a whole team together triaging questions and coming in from all kinds of businesses, smaller, typically small, about the federal programs, as well as doing direct coaching and direct question answering. So if you Google Bear powered by UM, you'll find that. So that is an option for folks in this region or anywhere for that matter to get started getting some questions answered. And we also can direct them to folks like Patty and Patty's team and others, economic development folks in their regions of the state that might be able to help on a local basis. So I also see Matt Harrington on there too, so we can send folks in your direction that as well. But I guess one of the things is, so Patty is very focused on in the manufacturing sector, but Patty, you might describe, because in our meeting you were describing to me what you see as manufacturing. So it's broader than what I expected. So maybe speak to that. When you work with manufacturers, what's a manufacturer for your group?
Well, anybody that takes something physical and changes the value of it is a manufacturer. So,
and do they have to do that in Montana? Are they required to do that in Montana?
No.
Okay.
So we work with any of them that do that. An interesting, newspapers are considered manufacturers. Obviously, breweries are. All food manufacturing is. Loggers are actually considered manufacturers because they take a tree that's standing in the forest, change the value of it by cutting it to 40-foot length and delimiting it. So the interesting thing that is not manufacturing, though, is all software, because it is not a physical thing. So we work with, there's about 3,300 manufacturers in the state of Montana right now. So we work with all of them we can. And we, like I think you were alluding to too, is all of our staff are mostly have engineering undergrads and then MBAs. So we don't just work on the production floor. We work with every part of the business that a manufacturer would have. So we deal with accounting and finance and marketing, cybersecurity, automation, human resources issues, all those things.
Yeah, you looking at your skill sets that you have in your organization, it's really deep, and you do it all. So I'd say, Zen, for folks that in the area you're speaking about, that they're really, really small. Like we had a call last week about basically self-employed or solo entrepreneurs that are doing different things, not manufacturing specifically, but we recognize that there's a gap in that range. Like especially in the federal programs, it was not very clear for solo entrepreneurs and self-employed folks. And so I think there needs to be continued support for that group, and there may be in this next round of funding. And Patty, I suppose you would support this. We know of some apparel, quote unquote, manufacturers that are single entrepreneurs in Missoula making swimsuits or making clothing, and they're manufacturing them in their house, or they're manufacturing them maybe in Seattle or someplace. But they would qualify. They're manufacturers with your group.
Yes, even if they're just thinking about it, we work with a lot of entrepreneurs. In fact, one of them, speaking of pivot, a gentleman called me from Cardwell, Montana last week, and he wanted to start up a toilet paper manufacturing plant in Cardwell because of the perceived lack of availability of that stuff.
Right. Or start making bidets, so you don't need.
Yeah. In fact, I'm working with a company right now that has come up with a new machine that is a sanitizer, and they don't really want to be a manufacturer in the sense of having a plant and employees and machinery. So they'd like us to set up a complete supply chain where parts are made, shipped to a central location, and done in final assembly. So that's another example of the entrepreneurs that we work with.
So we were talking earlier about doing a bit of that outward-facing analysis, looking at the market, and of course the inward-facing analysis to see, does it actually make sense, or can I actually afford to do it? Do you, for folks on the call, if we have some small business owners on the call that are trying to figure out what do I do next or how do I do it, and I think even to Kristen's point, like how do we get in front of folks, do you have a sort of a top 3 list of things you might recommend to people to start? How do I go out and know what my customers are looking for now?
Market research is so important. Back to that example of the plastic injection molder, trying to figure out what is the demand for plastic injection molded face masks, and is it temporary, or is it going to be a long-term thing? So one of the things we did was we talked with safety product distributors and retailers and asked them, do you think that you would be interested in buying this product if I produced it? And they really weren't. So constant and endless market research, I think, is the key.
I think that's a great point, is that you can, even in this case where we always hear in the news constantly, more face masks, we need these things. And then in that case, they actually, when they went out and asked the customer who they might sell to, okay, we can make these, do you want them? And you find out, no, actually we don't. This isn't a product that would be helpful for us. That's as good information to find out as them saying, yeah, that'd be great. It may not be as exciting because you have to find, all right, well, we shouldn't be building that, but at least you didn't go down the wrong direction and spend a lot of money that you may not get back again.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes, you look for a silver bullet or an easy way to do that kind of thing, but you said you just call people, and you said really make cold calls. Just do some Google searching and find folks who you think will be your customer and call them up and ask them about if they want this product, right? Is that?
Yeah. And with the face mask too, we're dealing with a shortage from 3M right now. 3M's a very smart company. 3M's going to ramp up production, and then will you be able to compete with them? So it may just be a temporary need.
Yeah, and I also heard an interview with another mask manufacturer in the country. This is a week ago, where they saw in the last global SARS epidemic, it didn't actually hit the United States as badly, but they've been really pushing the federal government to build a lot of this backlog of masks or focus on U.S. manufacturing of masks. But as soon as the epidemic and the disaster sort of culture goes away, all the hospitals and everybody that buy masks start buying again from outside the country because it's cheaper, and that's where it moves. Everybody's pushed in that direction. So U.S. manufacturers have a very hard time or challenge to compete. So when something like this comes up, the capacity is not there because people aren't buying it from them. So that's a critical piece too, is that this may get you into an industry or a sector. You may look at it, but what does it look like down the road quite a ways, and can you compete in that? That's a difficult thing to do. Do you have any insights on how somebody might walk through the process of sort of looking at down the road a ways and decide, okay, can I compete in that area?
A very detailed business analysis of the opportunity is a good starting point, complete with, you know, how much is it going to cost to get into this market? Do I need to buy machinery? What's my ROI at the end of this? And am I going to be able to produce at the same price as my competitor? And if not, can I show a distinct benefit to my product over the competition's product that would warrant a price increase? And again, lots of market research. Find out what is going on out there and how that's going to affect the consumer buying this product.
Just in the last few weeks, and what you're reading and what you're hearing from your market perspective, do you have any notable huge market shifts that have happened? You're like, wow, that may not come back. Like customer behavior has changed. Toilet paper is one of those things we hear all about, and customer behavior probably won't change around toilet paper. Everybody's going to continue to buy lots of it. Maybe there'll be a few people that bought the bidet, but maybe not too many. Are there any things in that way that we're maybe not seeing in the news that you're kind of seeing come up a lot, that you think, yeah, this is a big shift. It's probably going to likely stick around?
I do think that these cloth masks of some form or shape are going to be around for a long time. I think every citizen is eventually going to have one that they'll wear at certain times, I would think. And I think there's a big opportunity in that market. I would think it's going to be something like have to do, you know, it's going to have to be stylish, and there'll be lots of opportunities for specialization in that, I think. I think there's going to be a big increase in the use of hand sanitizer. And also, you know, if you were building industrial machinery, it's one of the issues that the manufacturers have come across recently is was this machine designed, or this line designed to have people separated at more than 6 feet? Or is it designed for them to work side by side all day long, which is going to be a problem in the future, I think. So I think there's opportunities for machinery manufacturers to differentiate themselves on that. Also, disinfectable surfaces is a big issue with the manufacturers right now. Lots of other operational things I think are going to be common in the future due to this, but that's about the only products I can see at this point that are really making a change.
Patty, to speak to that, are you seeing that manufacturers are changing their work hours or their shift hours, or like leaving a space in between shifts for cleaning, and how's that process changed?
Yes, that's one of the great things that we were able to get the manufacturers to share was their best practices on this. So many of them are having flexible shift changes. You know, if you're talking about a 24-hour operation, they're making it so everybody their shift starts 5 minutes off, so there's not a big gathering of people next to the time clock. They're shutting the machinery down an hour at the end of the shift and completely sanitizing it. They're offering flexible hours for those that are dealing with children at home. Some of them are even trying to offer daycare on site, which have been a growing trend in Montana too, just as a way to attract employees. But I think that will continue as well.
Yeah, we've heard too that daycare, particularly in lots of places in rural Montana, is a huge challenge. And so maybe there's an area of innovation potential there if, you know, folks are finding ways to help manufacturers provide daycare on site, or small towns that have a manufacturer provide daycare. There's more opportunity for more of the citizens in that area to go to work. And
Yes.
we definitely feel it now. I mean, so my wife's in the room behind me teaching a class, and my 4-year-old's trying to entertain himself outside without hopefully getting hurt. So we understand the importance of daycare in real time, that's for sure.
I think there's a lot of service-orientated things that are going to emerge out of this, like you just discussed, including a service that'll go in and sanitize the facility on weekends or something. That's another great pivot that we see in Montana is day spring. I don't know if anybody's noticed them, but I thought they only did restoration after flood or water damage or fire damage, and now I see they're out there disinfecting facilities. So that was a great pivot as well.
Yeah, we could see a lot of that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So we had also some conversations about preparing for a crisis, or setting your business up to be more resilient in situations like this, and maybe where it's a little early to have that conversation because we're still trying to make sure we get through this one. Mm-hmm. But what might you have one or two or three top things that small businesses should pay attention to build their resiliency?
Well, obviously, this gives you an opportunity. I think almost everybody should be redoing their strategic plan, or doing a new SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Mm-hmm. I don't think under the threat category, probably not too many people really took a worldwide pandemic as a serious threat, and yet here it is. And I'm sure there'll be stuff on there that you'll miss again. You won't think it's possible to have an earthquake in Montana, but that's a great opportunity. Everybody's supply chain. This is really highlighting the risk in your supply chain. Most of the quality management systems like ISO 9001 require that you analyze your risks. This is a great time to start analyzing your risks, especially with your supply chain. You talk about a big company called American Chemet out of East Helena. They're making powdered copper oxide. Now they almost had to shut down because they didn't have enough PPE. Now, when you're analyzing the supply chain for American Chemet, I doubt that anybody decided that the PPE was a risk that they needed to address. So that's changing. We found that several of our manufacturers in Montana had everything ready to go to produce some PPE, but they're not approved by FDA. So if they're not, this might be an opportunity to look at maybe not, or quit putting off the plan to get a certification with ISO 13485, which is required for FDA. I think also you should keep yourself very, very agile. Many companies, I don't know of any company that uses agile as a strategic plan or with certain tasks about it. But if you were to look at some of the well-run companies, a lot of them have an innovativeness metric that they track, and that might be how many new products a year do we introduce, or how long does it take us to get to market with a new product, and they track that as a metric but that type of metric could be very useful in keeping a company agile. And there's lots of things that can be done to increase that or improve that number, including lean product development, as well as design for manufacturing and assembly. That's another big issue that I think is going to come out of this too, is when engineers are designing products now, we try to take into account the assembly and the manufacturing of it, but I think they will now be looking at when the assembly is being done and manufacturing is being done, is it going to require two people to be within 6 feet of each other? So, but I think there's lots of opportunities too during this situation. I'm sure people realize that if only my staff had been cross-trained better, I would have been able to run during this time frame instead of being shut down. So there's a big opportunity.
Mhm.
When you were talking about threats to a company, the next one down the line might be cybersecurity, might be a cyber attack, and Montana manufacturers are being attacked more and more on that, and that could be just as devastating to a company as this is. So there's lots of opportunities for companies right now to address issues that maybe didn't seem as important in the past.
I've seen, as an example of a company being strategic, such as a hotel that started renting out their hotel rooms as office space for the week, so that the parents could take turns with working at home, and that way they can improve their productivity as well.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, that is a great idea. I haven't heard of that. It's interesting.
That way the parents can take turns on, helping teach their kids at home at the same time. If there's a really important skill that needs, or project that needs to be rolled out and the company, needs to focus on that, then the employee can have a quieter workspace to where they can, produce easier.
Yeah, and it's isolated or clean. If you're the only one going into that room, then you're safe there. Patty, one of the questions, before we move on to this, I'm going to launch a poll, everybody, just 3 questions. Just again, this is like we've had before, similar, just to kind of track to see who's on the call, but also we have a question in there. If you're interested in us following back up, or you want to get in contact with Patty, we have a question in number 2 there. If you say yes, we can send you an email and we can get you contacted with him and his team or us. So feel free to answer the poll as we go through the questions. So Patty, we've been talking about sort of the importance of, I think this is kind of a segue from your last point there, is that through industry focused groups, and this could be manufacturing or tech or some agriculture or retail, like the other ones we have in our poll, there's going to be different regulations coming down potentially, like the 6 feet apart for manufacturers, regulations or even guidelines so people can stay safe and not get sick and the workforce doesn't get sick. So restaurants maybe be confronted where they have to have a group of people come in, go out, do a full cleaning, next group of people come in. So having sort of industry focused conversations around how are we going to be innovative around managing in this world that we never had to do before. Do you see that coming out in your group? Like you're saying you're meeting weekly now, or are those types of conversations, like how do we prepare for these regulations that are?
I think, I don't think it's been a specific talking point in our conversations yet, but we do see that people are manufacturing plant owners and seem to be thinking that that's going to be the path of the future, is that, or an overused term, the new norm, that we just need to expect that how we would operate, that we may have to operate just as we are right now for years to come.
When you say the way we are now, meaning that we still, the social distancing, the masks, like you're saying, are going to be around, hand sanitizing, all of those requirements are likely or could be in place for quite some time.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And the changes in travel and so forth likely as well. We're just really not going to see the same degree of travel.
Yeah, another opportunity too I see is that during this crisis we've had, manufacturers, they probably have realized that many of the, or a lot of procedures that they have were not doable during this situation because of the 6-foot rule. And so there's an opportunity now to automate some of that so that it doesn't have to occur. Statistical process control is used on a lot of production floors. And maybe you have somebody that walks around on the floor and collects that data. Well, now might be a good time to, instead of having it written down on a piece of paper and somebody walking around collecting it, now might be the time to take that and have it automatically downloaded to the front office. We're also seeing a great deal of, I think a lot of people are realizing that the management staff doesn't have to be out on the production floor as often as they thought they did. And so there is an opportunity for a lot of those, even the, you know, the accounting staff and the finance staff to be working from home. And so it opens up space in your facility if you don't need to have as many offices.
Yeah, interesting. As we get accustomed to using this tool, the Zoom tool or the whatever meeting platform we have, and working from home, we can do it more. Are there any other questions on the line? Anybody got questions you want to ask Patty or ideas for the group?
I did want to add in, Zen had mentioned that the link went live this morning for self-employed people to apply for PPP.
Yeah, it's good reminder.
Yeah.
And there is new money for smaller businesses that just got approved by the Senate. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think the Senate passed it yesterday and the House votes tomorrow. Expected to pass, I think, and then the president will sign. So I guess we're sort of thinking money should be rolling out again, the applications to the banks by Monday, maybe. Maybe some will be on it on Saturday even. So we've been encouraging people to continue to apply for PPP if their lenders will do it. I don't know if you're seeing that too, or
We are.
Montana did pretty well. Hopefully the manufacturers I think
Yeah.
did pretty well in that as too.
Yeah.
Getting the last round. So yeah, it's a good program. Also the SBA programs, there's a number of those SBA programs that are the traditional programs that still could be looked at, and there's more money going into the EIDL specifically that could be used.
I also wanted to kind of mention just a couple of things looking ahead. We are hoping to have some more of these pivot kinds of conversations in the future. And so if you have any topics that you would like for us to touch on, we want to make sure we're being relevant to everyone. So you can drop that in if you have any ideas of things to touch on. For example, like moving your business online, as Zen mentioned, we kind of hope to touch on that because we know that's something a lot of people are having to look at and do. And then our colleagues at the Blackstone Launchpad have also been having Indoor Innovator Series, and they've been interviewing all different kinds of people. Some, like last week, they had someone that's in shipping fulfillment and things like that. So I'm going to drop a link to their Facebook page too. They've been doing a couple events a week as well.
So Patty, just kind of, I think we're wrapping up, getting close to wrap up here a few minutes early, but just this group has in the last 3-4 weeks now been really focusing on trying to get some, actionable, talk about concepts, but get some actionable items in folks' hands and places to go for help and get answers. In addition to yourself and the economic development organizations in the state, are there any other resources you might suggest that you're sending people or telling people to go check out that would be important?
Well, if it's, I guess your bank, communicating with your banker is probably one of the most important things you could do right now. Lots of resources in the state of Montana. Kind of shocking how many resources there are. Both the SBDC and MMEC are pretty well versed in all those resources that are available. So if you just don't know where to start, you can always start with SBDC or MMEC, and we can direct you to the right person at the right agency to talk to address that issue. So, the Montana Department of Labor and Industry has been doing a fantastic job, as well as Montana Department of Commerce. There's all kinds of resources at Department of Agriculture, EDA, USDA, SBA, the university system. Kind of shocking how much is available out there to help.
I just wanted to add a little comment in there too. Again, building on the great insights from Paddy, something to think about going forward too is retaining your talent acquisition pipeline. And I've just spent 4 weeks working with a whole bunch of universities on converting real-time internships or co-op placements into virtual. And one of the phrases that's come out of this is nobody's really focused on the new normal. What we're all looking forward is towards the next normal. So, and Paddy, when you're saying, managers don't have to be on the floor as much as what they thought, there's a whole other side to this that I think will probably come through with the talent pipelines being traditionally maintained for these manufacturing companies, whether the talent's grown internally or not, but it's working with these other agencies because there's a whole new skill set emerging as well. And again, we keep talking about the next normal, not the new normal right now. So I just wanted to throw that in there because I know U of M and MSU have actually been really busy looking at converting real-time placements into virtual placements. So that adds a lot of value too. That's it, I'm done.
I think that's kind of an interesting one because we have a number of students that we're working with, of course, graduating and coming into the job market. Are there some opportunities in Montana manufacturing with virtual opportunities, Paddy, that you're seeing, or are there?
I don't know of any specifically, but I would think that, marketing, accounting, sales,
business analysis, feasibility studies, policy updates, all of these new work practices are going to have to update the ops manuals. There's a, open market there for business students. There's huge potential. And again, I just want to say we're not trying to, when we have these discussions with these talent pipelines and workforce development, we're not looking at, can we just get through now? No, we're actually trying to get ahead of it. So we're looking at that next normal. And as Paddy says, if the ruling comes down, you can go back to work, but you've got to be 6 feet apart. That has a ripple back through any organisation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I lied before. Now I'm done.
That's a great point. I'd like to touch on that also. Paddy, when you had also brought up the SWOT analysis for companies to take a look at, do they consider looking at their employees' SWOT skill sets as well, to look at where their strengths are and see how they can be more strategic in moving forward with looking at untapped talent that their employees have had, just not as developed. And so then how can they tap into that area to get to their new normal?
Yeah, agreed.
Well, I think that, the new normal, the next normal, what are we going to see? That's we're kind of ending on where we started, which essentially is supporting this great opportunity and supporting organizations, big and small, to what we called in this essentially pivot or potentially move into that future environment of the market and understanding what their customers are wanting, what they're needing when they're doing their particular jobs or the things that they do in their daily life. What is it they are running into? What hurdles are different for them now than they were 3 months ago or even 4 weeks ago? There is a great deal of opportunity there to try to support organizations to move in and grow again, particularly during the recovery out of the market. I think we're in now, and will, I think, become more apparent here in the next few weeks. But I don't want to leave on a bad note. I think there is a great deal of opportunity there, and Montana's manufacturers have showed how nimble they really can be, and move into new areas, whether they choose to stay into those manufacturing products or not. They definitely can do it, and they can source the materials, and they can build them. And I think that's a remarkable thing to see in Montana. So I thank you, Paddy, and applaud you and your team for supporting them and doing that and doing what you do. And as Paddy said, there's lots of resources out there in Montana, and MMEC as well as the SBDC are good places to get that information. There's also, like I said, the Bear Powered by site. You can go there. They can direct you. We can help direct you as well as AMRI. So yeah, I think there's a lot of resources out there, and I think we really do need to pull together on this one and support each other with our know-how and train people into the next stage. So unless there's any other final comments, Paddy, I'd like to thank you very much. And I also want to note that I misspelled Paddy's name in the announcement. So Fleming is spelled with the single M, not two, as I did. So I just want to apologize, Paddy, for doing that. And
No worries.
just recognize that I made that mistake. But so for everybody, thanks so much for being on the call. We will pull this up again next week. We're also looking at doing maybe a little increasing our cadence, and maybe doing a call 2 times a week, maybe 3 times a week. We may have Paddy Cox on next to talk about government contracting. So if you haven't done government contracting, how you might dive in or jump in and take advantage of that opportunity if it fits your business model. So that's up on the docket, as well as doing some marketing and online sales conversations with some experts in the field there too. So those are next. But if you have some other ideas, or you have things you really need addressed or you want to talk about, please post them up in the side chat. Like we've said before, it's probably the best way for us to get them. Send us an email, post it on Facebook, and we'll try to take those topics up as well on our next calls. I'll keep this meeting open a little bit so you can post questions there, or if you have any final questions for us. But Paddy, thank you very much. Really appreciate the time and expertise and all the work you're doing.
Thank you, Karl, and thanks for all the work you guys do throughout the state.
Stay healthy and stay safe. Take care. Okay, I will keep the room open a bit here, just to allow people to shoot questions in if you got any. And we will be, if you have any follow-up questions that maybe didn't get answered or something, go ahead and post those like we've done in the last couple of weeks, and we can put those up. If we get answers to those, we'll put them up on the Facebook page.
You know, connecting back to having employees take a SWOT analysis of their own skill sets, and employees not always aware of their untapped potential that's underdeveloped at that time or just not aware of. And that is one of the skill sets that my program and my training brings out. How do I get that in front of companies? What's the appropriate way to communicate that?
Yeah, I think that we've talked a bit about that. I think that's a good question in this day and age, in this time frame. And I think that's one of the driving forces behind us having this marketing conversation on online marketing.
Mm-hmm.
I think Paddy also spoke to it earlier. Is like trying to just call people and see. I think there is a bit of that cold calling, call 5, 10, 20 businesses that you may know or you have contacts with, friends of friends, friends of colleagues, that kind of thing, and see if you can bend their ear a bit for a few minutes and see what they're looking for. There's a bit of that market fit piece too, right? Of to say, okay, that's SWOT analysis, training employees, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Taking advantage of the time, maybe. But yeah, Kristen, if you want to set up another time, we could probably have a conversation. I think the next step, we could have another round of conversations with our team as well.
Okay, I would truly appreciate that. Thank you.
Not seeing any more questions on the sidebar, I'm going to close the meeting. Thank you all,
Thank
and
you.
we'll talk to you all soon. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.